Hi friends, my name is Ali Padron. Welcome to my home. This is going to be a cozy talking video about what's been on my mind recently, and I think this thought process is something that maybe the Lord has been teaching me, or I hope it was led by the Holy Spirit, because it started at one point, but then it ended up kind of somewhere completely else. This one is a very personal style video, as I'll just be sharing what's on my mind and what I've been thinking about God recently. And so if you want to hang out, thanks for being here. Thanks for coming to the Padron home. If you have never seen me before or you're relatively new to my channel, I'm relatively new to my channel. So just to give a little brief introduction about who I am and what kind of season of life I'm in, I recently did a video talking about my favorite Christian YouTubers, and within the lifestyle genre, which is where I want my channel to end up eventually, I realized, I'm not in the same season of life as any of these girls that I've mentioned. So let me just share with you, I am 24 years old. I'm Korean American. My husband is 27, and we recently got married within the past year. So we're newlyweds, we don't have any kids, and I don't think we'll have kids for a while, or pets. So that's where we're at with that. We live in Orange County, California, and it's the best place to live, in my opinion. I love it here. I love the Lord. I talk about my faith pretty openly and often on my channel, just because that's what I like to do. I really like these sit-down type of videos, as you can see from my playlist. I try to categorize it based on the type of video, even though the whole channel just kind of revolves around my life and who I am as a person, but the playlist that has the most amount of videos is these kind of chat with me videos. I like doing them the best. And while I want to get into home organization and all that stuff too, that takes a lot of physical labor on top of creating the video. So just with wedding season recently, I haven't gotten to put the time into that, but YouTube is great accountability for me because I want to make videos on them. That means I actually need to organize and clean my home. So thank you for being accountability to me in that. But this is another chat with me video. I think that was pretty much all I wanted to say in the beginning here, but I hope you're doing well. I hope you're having a great day so far. And here are my musings that came to me at 2 a.m. someday this past week. So here we go. It started out with me thinking about God and emotions. And I was thinking about how God experiences emotions like us, but not like us, because he's holy. And this thought came to me because I'm an externally stimulated person. So in order for the wheels in my brain to start going, and they can go, the wheels really go for me. But it takes something else to trigger it. Like, it takes a podcast, it takes somebody saying something to me, and I take in that material, and then my brain starts chewing it and digesting it, as opposed to somebody that is more internally introspective, where within themselves they can just have a thought and their mind gets going, if you know what I mean. The analogy I was thinking about was like a train, and some people can just put coal into the engine and it fuels the train and the train wheels start turning. Other people like me may need to get rear-ended by another train in order for their wheels to start turning. So that's where I'm at. What happened to me to get my train going was that a friend of mine got into a minor car accident. She's okay, not hurt at all. Everything's good now. But in the moment, she was frustrated, which is totally normal and natural. I would have been too. Car accidents and car problems are never anticipated most of the time, and they're usually always inconvenient. It's always like, oh my gosh, I have to pay for this now, and I gotta spend the time to go to a car repair shop. They're just always an inconvenience. And if you're dealing with car troubles, my heart goes out to you. I hope you're doing okay, and I hope it gets resolved as efficiently as possible. But yeah, this friend anyways got into a minor car accident. She was frustrated. Her plans were not going as she expected because she had other things she wanted to do throughout the day, but now she had to deal with this car thing. And so she was expressing her frustration to me. And just to clarify, I don't think my friend was sinning as I go on. I thought about how she was frustrated because she had no control over the situation and because it was unexpected. She did not foresee running over something on the freeway and having to pull over and get that checked out. You know what I'm saying? Like, she did not see this coming. It was out of her control, and so she got frustrated. And I thought about God and frustration because God has experienced every human emotion. One, because we're made in his image. So more than God experiencing our emotions, I think that we experience God's emotions because we're made like him. Another fact is that Jesus lived a perfectly, completely human life, and so he was 100% a man when he was here, and so I'm sure he experienced frustration without sin. So I thought about that. I thought about how God has experienced this, and yet it's different from the way that my friend experienced it, because there's no circumstance that catches God off guard. There's nothing that happens where God is like, oh, I didn't foresee that happening, or, oh, that caught me by surprise. This was not supposed to happen. God never has a moment like that, which is so crazy to think about. Even when Jesus was here as a human, and if he veiled this aspect of his divinity, of knowing everything, I don't know for sure. I haven't super studied this, but if Jesus, when he was a human, experienced things out of his control, which he did. He was literally a baby and didn't see it coming, so it was a surprise to him and it was an inconvenience to him. He still did not sin because he perfectly trusted God. And so when we experience things like anger, frustration, grief, I think all these emotions are normal. They're normal, and they're not to be something that we should feel shame about, because God created us with these emotions, and he created us with these emotions in his image. He also experiences these emotions, I believe. But the way that Jesus exemplifies to us perfectly how he experiences these things but without sin is that even though he experiences it, even though he got frustrated, angry, sad, whatever it may be, he still trusted God. And he did not doubt the goodness or the sovereignty of God. And he did not doubt God's control in the matter. So it's one thing to be God and to be in control. So God may be angry when he looks at somebody's rebellion or somebody's sin or defiance to him, but God is not surprised by it. God is not like, oh my gosh, this caught me off guard, because he's God. He's all-knowing, he's all-present, he knows the full context of every situation. That's something that we as humans cannot relate to. And that's how God, in a way, is higher than us, holier than us. But Jesus, we can relate to more in a human sense. Even though he's still God, he did not have all the same knowledge and control that God the Father had when Jesus was walking on this earth as a human being. But we can be like him if in experiencing the emotions that we do, and I feel like sometimes there's a stigma of these emotions being bad. Like, it's bad to cry too much, or it's bad to get angry and experience like rage at something. And it's not true that those emotions in themselves are bad. Those emotions can become used for evil, and I guess corrupted into a bad thing if we do not trust God with them. So in your anger, with your anger, do you trust God? In your frustration at a circumstance that's out of your control, do you trust that God is still in control? In your grief, in your mourning, in your sadness, do you trust that God is still good and that He sees you? That is how we can be angry and do not sin, or be sad and do not sin, etc. You know, when I had these 2 a.m. thoughts initially, my mind went down a road and it ended in a completely different place than where I started. I started off thinking about emotions and God's holiness and yet compassion in our emotions. That in itself is complex of an idea in itself. So I'm not sure if I want to go down the whole rabbit hole that I went on where it ended up in a completely different place. So for the sake of not being too confusing, I don't think I'll go down the same 2 a.m. thought process that I did before. But is there anything else I want to say about emotions and God? I think that we are not to be emotionless. I don't think that's how God designed us to be or created us to be. It's not the solution. And sometimes it's not fun to experience some of the emotions that we do. It's not fun to be angry. At least I don't think so. I feel yucky about myself when I'm angry sometimes. But we are to experience these things because God made us this way. And so it shouldn't be a source of us feeling gross about ourselves or shameful for feeling a certain way. We are just not to be led by those feelings and let those feelings drive us to take actions that don't honor God. I think that is kind of where the line is drawn. But I think we should feel these things. And I think this is an area where the Lord has matured me because from my own personal story, emotions were something that I just knew I shouldn't be ruled by them. And this is such a true statement, and one that I still agree with to this day. My dad was not a very emotional person. He was a rock. He rarely cried. I can probably count on my one hand the amount of times I've seen him cry. And I'm not saying that you have to cry, but if you don't cry, are you suppressing something? I was. I'm not going to insinuate anything for you. But for me, I was suppressing tears. I was suppressing actually crying. And so I just felt like if I were to be emotional, my thoughts would be invalid. And if I were to be emotional, that means that I wasn't being logical. But I think that you can have a sound mind and be emotional. That's what I think. I think you can cry and mean what you say. And I think that it's good to release emotions, but not to make actions based upon your emotions. Instead, go to the Lord with them and trust Him with whatever is causing your emotion. Because whatever is causing you to feel a certain way is likely a valid thing. But yet, it's not something that the Lord wants you to deal with on your own. And it's something that I am positive the Lord wants you to cast on Him so that He can carry that burden that's too heavy for you to bear alone. So do that because that's the way we were designed. That's the way God created us. And that's how we can have peace and rest and comfort and joy. We have a burden in this life. We have many burdens in this life, actually. But those burdens can be cast upon the Lord, and He can carry them for you and trade His yoke that is easy and His burden that is light to you. So you give your heavy burdens to the Lord, and He's going to give you a burden still. You're not without burdens in this life. He's still going to give you responsibility. He's still going to ask you to do things that are hard, that you may not want to do. But with Him, it's light. With Him, it's easy. That's what the scripture promises us. So that is where I will end this. And thanks for coming over again. Thanks for hanging out with me. I hope to see you again next week at the Padrone home. I've been doing my best to be really consistent and posting every week, so I really, really appreciate you being here. I appreciate you for subscribing if you have, and yeah, that is all I gotta say. I look forward to seeing you friends over again next week. Have a wonderful day. God be with you.
I need a safe place I can run and hide, where somebody says just come inside, be yourself, take a breath. Everybody needs a little